Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. She was the one calling every hour during the workday, but you all were getting paid to be there regardless of whether or not you were talking to her. If anyone was being inconvenienced, it was her. But Karen's got a Karen. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Customer wants to call us every hour until her issue is fixed. Sure. So I work at a pretty big tech company as a help desk agent, and as any help desk employee, I've had my fair share of crazy customers, like this one, who we shall call Karen. We would mainly answer the phone and emails and then log in our tickets to our system for handling all the issues customers would require us to solve. Each log ticket will cause the customer to be billed the standard help desk fee, and then it would add up depending on how long it takes, parts needed, etc. On to the story. So one morning, Karen calls in and asks about a ticket she had logged like 2 hours ago. I go and check the status and see it was a pretty standard account request for one of her employees, and it was already being handled by the team that creates these particular accounts. This account was for an outside system for which we only provide the accounts, and they have their own support for problems. Due to synchronization after we create the account, it takes roughly 24 hours for it to be functional, and this is quite well known for the managers who usually request them to be created. I informed Karen that the account is being created right now and she should be getting a confirmation about it soon. I also remind her that it can take about 24 hours for it to be functional. As soon as I said these things, the tone on her changed immediately, and she informed me quite annoyingly that this was very urgent and it should be functional faster. We talked for a little while longer, and I explained to her why exactly it takes this long, and finally she seems to understand, and we end the call. About an hour later, one of my colleagues sends me a message asking if I've talked to this lady before and tells me she's calling again, angry and demanding that the account should be made faster. Once again, they explain the same things I did, and they end the call. About another hour later, I answer a call, and it's Karen again, even angrier and practically yelling that the account needs to be created now. I check the ticket again and see it's been completed, so the account should be working tomorrow. I tell this to Karen, and she's not happy. She starts to yell all sorts of things and says this is not how we should do things, and again I inform her that the system she needs the account for is not ours, and this is something we can't do anything about. But she won't have it. She then calmly informs me that if this is how we do things, then she'll be calling us every hour to waste our time until the account is done. I can almost hear the smirk on her face as she says this. Now, even though she was being extremely rude, I didn't want to be a jerk and tried to inform her that every time she calls, we're required to log in a ticket and her company will be charged the standard help desk fee. But as I try to tell her this, she just cuts me off and refuses to listen. So at this point I say, all right, call us if you want. So then she proceeds to call us every hour for the rest of her workday and next morning. I get a few of her calls and just always repeat the same thing. Account will be working within 24 hours, and each time she calls me or one of my colleagues, we log in a ticket and move on. Eventually, the call stopped, presumably because the account was finally functional and we didn't hear from her again. I haven't heard if she got into any trouble for it, but she must have generated quite a bill for her company over nothing. And our second story. Your speech is so garbled. I was visiting my usual hardware store to get sandpaper and polyurethane for one of my many furniture refinishing projects. I was wearing sweatpants that were covered in paint splotches and a Green Day t-shirt. I looked nothing like an employee, but whatever, this bee was on a mission. I was inspecting the polyurethane when I heard someone tapping their foot behind me. Thinking I was in their way, I scooted to the side a bit to let them pass. No dice. Then came the passive-aggressive coughing. I turned around to see a woman about 5'4". Yeah? I asked. Is that how you greet a customer? She snapped, her eyes sort of bulging out of her head. Look, ma'am, I don't work here. I'm just here to get crap to redo my furniture. Now, at this point, I should mention that I have a New Jersey accent, so sometimes people can't understand my pronunciations of certain words. However, none of the things I said were particularly hard to understand, but F it, I live in Connecticut. People here tend to have problems with my accent, so maybe she just wasn't used to it. Your speech is so garbled I have no idea what you just said. Where are the light fixtures? She demanded, getting louder and louder. Okay, listen, I don't work here. I work at a kennel. What's so hard to understand about this? I was getting frustrated at this point. Don't lie to me. You don't work at a kennel. You work here. I know you know where the light fixtures are. She was starting to yell at this point. Don't tell me where I work. I get enough crap, literally, from the dogs at my actual job. I don't need it from you. I'm just buying some effing polyurethane. I start to walk away, hoping she'd take a hint. Then came those beautiful words. I'm getting the manager. Yes, B, do it. I wandered into a different aisle, now browsing sandpaper selections, when the crazed woman came lumbering towards me, literally dragging the manager by the arm. There she is. There's the girl that refused to help me. The manager gave me a really confused look, but before he could even speak, she piped up again, saying, You should really hire people that speak better English. I couldn't understand a word she said. I was baffled at this point. English is my first language. My accent just got mistaken for a different language. I'm rarely left speechless, but this was one of those times. The manager took control and said, Ma'am, this girl really doesn't work here. I've never seen her before in my life. She glared at me in disbelief, so I figured I'd nip it in the bud before she could go on yet another rant. He ain't lying, I said. She walked off in a huff, and the manager assured me that my English was perfect. Aces. And our next story. The Great Wall of Pennsylvania. My ex and I lived on the main street of a small town. We were next to an older couple, early 60s, who lived above their car restoration business. Their building fronted right on the sidewalk and ran the full length and width of their property. There was a garage door in the middle of the front of the building. It was recessed, set back almost the length of a car, so there was a sort of tunnel/carport. That's where they parked the antique car that was their primary transport. The curb to either side of the garage apron was painted yellow. Edit. This was not the first problem we had with them. The wife would give us permission to do something like double park in front of their driveway to unload groceries or park my mom's car in the vacant lot they owned across the street, but not tell her husband she had. He'd end up yelling at us about it. Twice he yelled at me right in front of his wife for something she'd said was okay, and she stood there and didn't say a word. I'd parked our minivan, as was my preference, in front of our house just outside the no parking zone when we got a big snowfall. It was almost a foot, and it was wet and heavy. The husband used a snowblower and cleared their sidewalk and driveway. He blew half of it into a big pile right in front of our van, right up against it. Some even landed on our windshield. There was a car parked a foot behind us, so we had to go through where our pile was if we wanted to drive anywhere. The pile was over 4 feet tall at its peak, and most of it was about 3 feet, just low enough to see over when he backed out. I did some rough calculations and determined it was a nearly metric crap ton and a half of snow. I rang their doorbell hoping to start a dialogue about it. They didn't answer. I didn't see all that snow as a problem. I saw it as an opportunity. It was the raw material that dreams are made of. My stepson and I spent hours working on that pile. We were up half the night, and I've never seen my stepson put so much effort into anything else, before or since. He understood grandeur of my plan, and he shared my commitment to it. Together, we made something magnificent and awe-inspiring. We built a wall. The hard part was that even with the snow from our sidewalk, there wasn't enough to realize my vision. I needed more. I did the neighbor on the other side of our twin. I added the snow from alongside of our house, carrying each shovelful to the sidewalk for my stepson to add. Then I got smart and started shoveling snow from the backyard onto a tarp so I could drag a big pile around with each trip. It started on the curb by the front of the van and completely enclosed and concealed the no parking sign. It went through and dammed the gutter and went out into the street at an angle ending just over a car width from the curb just before the neighbor's driveway. It was 9.5 feet tall, 11 feet long. It was a foot thick at the curb end and widened to more than 3 feet thick. We used a storage bin to make blocks, and we sprayed each one with water. We used slush as mortar. That thing wasn't coming down without heavy equipment. For weeks afterward, whenever he wanted to leave, his wife had to stand in the street and wave him out when it was clear. The street sloped up slightly towards their property, so a lake formed on their side of the wall and extended to the far end of their property. It was ankle deep where the gutter was, so she had to walk around it. I found out from another neighbor that they called the cops, but I checked the local ordinances and it was completely legal. It was entirely within the footprint of the pile the husband had made. It was just taller. There were no restrictions on height. All the relevant ordinance dictated was that a pile of snow couldn't present a risk of damage to property, and the wall didn't. It was structurally sound. I'm just so glad you and your stepson were a family unit of petty. Makes it twice as nice. And now he has a story to tell his kids. And our last story. Crazy neighbor threatening to sue. Long story. I'm 18 and starting college soon. About 2 months ago, I moved into my sister's townhouse. During the moving process, I bought and hung up a bunch of privacy curtains for the back windows and sliding glass door because she just has an itty-bitty backyard with another row of townhouses right behind. Basically, things were in full view. I didn't notice it at first, but the guy who lives behind us has definitely been watching. I've seen him peering over his fence a few times when I was working outside. I've never met him before or really know anything about him. Mid-50s, haven't seen anyone else at his place. So yesterday, as I was going out for groceries, I noticed an envelope taped to my windshield with my full name on it. Inside was a handwritten note demanding I take down all recent window coverings because they violated HOA rules, unspecified, and caused enormous glare into his house. If I don't take them down soon, he's going to sue me, $15,000, for ruining his quality of life. What? I know it was creepy, dude, since he signed his name and put his address down. He included about a dozen pictures of said curtains, mainly the sliding glass door and the windows to my sister's ensuite bathroom, WTF, and some of me installing the curtains. So I called the HOA, and there are no rules about curtains or window coverings at all, and I'm totally picking up some security cameras. If this keeps up, I'm going to go to the police and tell him to F off. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.